About 2 years ago, or 2 or 3 years ago, is when I really started getting a little bit more involved.
Because of the Harley dealership?
Yeah, I honestly didn't have any plans to ride before, but after working around them and being around them, I just fell in love with it. No, honestly, I've
Just the dealership.
just the dealership, the guys who work here, Jim, Jason, all these guys that ride, and they're obviously passionate about it. And then getting out there and riding a little bit solo and with small packs and everything, it felt good being able to go for those rides and not have, the wind in your hair, though I lack hair, but, it's getting out and being a little bit free and open. You get to get in your own head and just clear your thoughts. So that's what really drew me to it. I'd say, before I actually spent some time around it, it would have been the beginning of 2017. So only a couple years.
Yeah, you're a newbie.
100%. Yeah, I didn't have my endorsement, anything. So taking the class and I jumped straight to a bagger, so I skipped all the small bikes and just got to what I wanted, which was the great thing about being around. It's like you get to see everything and play with it and touch it and say, I like this, I don't like this. But a lot of people, what I see come in here is they'll buy one bike, realize they love it, and then they'll upgrade, and I just skipped right to what I wanted, so I didn't have to play that game, which I loved a lot. It's weird. I've worked in several other industries that weren't motorcycle involved, but the people who come in the dealership who've had Harleys for their entire lives absolutely love it, and it's what they want. It's their stress relief, and just seeing people be so involved and so happy with that brand, it's hard not to draw you to it. You see, and they'll come in, they'll tell you about this bike they had 3 times ago, and they should have never sold it because it was awesome, and riding with their kids, or all these stories of great adventures. That's what it is to me. It's not the barn shield. It's not anything fancy. It's just the people that fall in love with it, and it's hooked them for life. I ride a Road Glide Special currently. So we're kind of in the middle of a lot of great areas. If you like trees and those windy roads, my personal favorite is I take out of here, headed east, and it's about an hour. Get to the bottom of Palisades, and there's just a big dam, and the road runs right next to it. And when you start pulling up that hill, you just smile because you have pine trees on both sides, or a giant reservoir on your right as you're headed up. And it's nothing but windy and twisty, and it's just fun. That's my favorite, and then I'll go over to Alpine and have a few drinks there, or just relax for a little bit. And sometimes my wife goes with me, sometimes she doesn't. Just depends, but it's nice to get out and just hit those, and you're just concentrating on turning and going through the roads. You can also go north into Yellowstone if you want to go do a little bit different. I take a lot of back ways. There's a Mesa Falls route, so you go see some waterfalls and everything like that, which normally I never did in a car because it wasn't faster, but on a bike it's nice taking those off-roads and not having to just sit on a highway. Those are probably my favorite. I really don't. And I won't lie, it's like when I started, I was like, none of these really fit the bill for me, or I was really attached to the Breakout when I first started. It's like, that's just an awesome bike, big fat tire, small front end, easy to throw around. It's like, that's what I loved. But after being here for so long, all of them start to have their characteristics where it's like, all right, I like this now. And it took a little bit of time to build up, but I like most of them currently. Last year we did a 4th of July trip with a few guys, and it was all different riders, and it was just go out and have fun. We had a trip, just gave us a destination, and we kind of broke up into our groups with people we like to ride with, and just met where we needed to and kept going on. But it was, 4 or 5 hours, and everybody was either at 4th of July parades or everything, so nobody was on the road. It was fun, is what it was. But nice. Getting out with a lot of people that you normally, and his first time I rode with a lot of these guys. our customers and everything like that. And it's like, all right, finding out who you like to ride with, what type of style you like to ride with. But that was probably my favorite, was the 4th of July ride last year. Buy what you want, don't settle, because you're going to be back in buying another, or the bike you wanted in the first place, a couple years later. So unless there's a huge price discrepancy, a lot of people getting into the brand. I know Harley does a lot of the get what you, or they'll buy back your Sportster if you decide to go with the Sportster for what you paid for it. So it's like, if you like that, do that for a year and then come back. So it depends on how people are sitting or what they've been used to. Try to get a little bit of background information before I recommend anything to them. But if you're starting out, I'd recommend going with a Sportster. Depending on your size, if you're a big guy like me, I just don't fit or my hips lock up. If not, I would definitely go to a Softail model. I think the Lowrider S is, everybody who's hopping into the sport that really wants to fall in love with, their new Lowrider S is my favorite. You know, it's a little bit more laid back, especially during the winter now where we're at. During the summer, sometimes it's chaotic and you show up and there's 10 guys waiting at the door and you just know it's going to be a packed day. But when it slows down, early spring, late fall, where everybody just mellows out and just wants to come in, have a cup of coffee and just BS or tell you what their stories were and hear what they did about their bike and what they fell in love with. So the first thing I'd say is, especially if you're from back east or anywhere that's not from the west side, seeing the mountains around us. You'll see the Grand Tetons, which are, you can see from here if you go north a little bit, but actually being able to hit some of those hills, and it's not just a small little, what do they call it? Hill, I guess, or a butte would probably be the proper words to say. But you actually get to go up in the mountains, see wildlife, and it's not, you don't have to deal with the traffic of a lot of places back east or anything. It's, there are open roads here. You know, it's funny because you always have these stigmas about people who walk in the door. It's like, yeah, that guy does this, or comes in a button-up shirt, or you have these guys show up in construction uniforms, and it's just, and they love their product. And it's funny. It's like, well, I'll buy a shirt or I'll buy this, and they'll take the time to take care of their bike and leave other stuff. It's their passion. So it's great seeing people like that. I think the biggest thing is coming in here and talking to us all and getting to know us. Even if you come in, you don't have to come in here and buy something. You can come in, get some coffee, hang out, look at the new collections, look at new bikes. If you're just bored sitting at home, come in and hang out. We like to have people here, like to engage with people. It makes our days go by so much faster, break up the monotony of paperwork and everything else, that you get to sit by and talk to people. The biggest thing is you have them nationwide. So the biggest, you show up, you know what quality you're getting. Harley handles everything. It's one of the best industries I've ever worked for. I came in, I was like, oh, you have a warranty concern? They just take care of it. There's no fight. So when you come in here and spend time, and especially if you buy from Harley, you know that you're getting the backup nationwide no matter what. So you can go on those rides, say, I'm going to leave the state and not feel that, and feel confident that you'll be taken care of if any concern arises. So all the guys have a very strict list of what they have to go over, and we were talking about an item earlier today. So on some of the older bikes, part of the service that nobody does when they just change their oil is screws for like the intake on the back. On the older bikes, if you didn't do that, you'd suck it through your motor. A guy spent $10,000 on a motor, didn't listen. We put a screen and everything to protect it, sucked it through, and he had to redo a motor twice. So what you know when you bring stuff in here is everything's getting tightened, lubed, and it might be something that you don't even think of. Kickstands, motor mounts, all these things that take, whether it takes them 5 minutes or 20 minutes, the small stuff gets done. So that way when you hit the road, you know that the two tires underneath you aren't going to fall off, or you're not going to break down somewhere because the shift linkage wasn't done right. It's just confidence in what you're riding.